And he approached me on an issue like that, and he's really interested in it. So it's possible, I may do it, but we'll see. If you want to help, perfectly glad to take the help too. Why don't you initiate it? Give me a phone call. I'll make you a producer. Who's next?
Hi, Joe. It's great to have you here. In Vegas, you had a really awesome death scene. How did you react when you heard about that?
Well, I already knew the show had been canceled, so kind of a profound meaning. You got to remember, it was an alternate reality also. To me, it was a great storyline. It opened up a lot of new storyline possibilities, and I really thought that Vegas, I personally like Vegas. Somebody came up the other day, we had to have one of these dinners. I think it was a charity dinner, and they took tremendous, energy to tell me that their least favorite episode was Vegas. I was like, God, are you kidding me? I love that episode. That was cool. And I think that we should have done that like 3 years ago. Parallel universe issues opens up a whole new dimension of storylines. And the truth is, you're dealing with the same group of writers that did SG-1. We would try to remind them they were recycling ideas. We're like, you already did that. And then you already did that too, but you already did it again, and this is the 4th time you've done it. Like, no, that was different. The name was Peter, not Bob. It's like, oh, the well is getting dry. So I think part of the desire of them to go do a new show, too, was to reboot the whole thing. The problem is they didn't. It's the same group of writers, so I don't know how that's going to work out unless they do a hard reset of their minds, I guess. As far as the death scene goes, that was a really interesting. The last thing I ever shot after 5 years of working was that episode, because we waited till the very last to shoot it. So I was in a penthouse suite at Caesar's Palace as the sun was coming up, and that was it. We're like, all right, that's it. It wasn't like, oh, that's a wrap, go home, we'll see you next week or anything. It was like, wow, that's it. All right, see you later. Okay. Talk to you later. All right. So it was just very strange. But it was also one of my favorite episodes to shoot. So, and they had Johnny Cash. That always helps. Johnny Cash always takes the stink off of some scene. Yes.
Hi, Joe. I asked this question of Dr. McKay last year, and I'm just wondering what your take on it is. I was just wondering what your scariest moment on set was, your funniest moment, and your best Richard Dean Anderson moment, because everyone seems to have one.
Scariest moment was probably when Paul and David kissed. I'm still trying to shake it a little bit. It's weird, we yelled cut and they just kept going. Very disturbing. The funniest moments, boy, there's so many. Quantify this, I don't know, who's the numbers guy? We'll work 12 to 14 hours every day, and it takes 6 to 7 days to shoot an episode, and we shot 100. So, how many hours is that on set?
It's probably 200.
Might have to call tech support for it, but it's a lot. What is it? 7,200 hours? Wow. So in 7,200 hours, the scariest moment definitely was David and Paul kissing. But as far as the funniest moment, there are multiple things that happened that were just hilarious. We spent a good chunk of our time laughing. So much so that actually David and I were called to the principal's office on numerous occasions and told, stop screwing around. you're distracted. Oh, I know what it was. We were goofing around so much that the guest stars were having a hard time staying in character. And I was like, oh, try acting, you know? Because David and I could be like, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the universe is falling down. Kind of like, we could just do it, right? That's what happens after 7,200 hours. But some people, guest stars in particular, a lot of times they're not working very much. So they're all geared up and they get to set and their acting muscles are not as loose. So they're like, all right, I am Thor. I am Thor. You know, they're walking outside their trailer and they're like, Thor. And David and I are like, so I could see where it would go wrong. But then we'd also do things that were considered deliberately insubordinate. We just sang our own lines when we wanted to. And a couple, you know, funny things like we tried to play as many practical jokes as we could, and the more disturbing they were, the better they were. One time, Jason Momoa and I went to Seattle we had a day off, and which is really rare that I ever had days off. And Jason and I would almost never have a day off at the same time. And so he had a pink Cadillac, 1955 pink Cadillac, and we're like, yeah, let's go to Seattle. You know, so we drove from Vancouver to Seattle, and the producers are like, you know, like they're like parents. They're like, oh, okay, so when are you gonna be back? Any contact phone numbers that we can have? I'm like, yeah, we'll call you, whatever. You know, we're gonna have a good time. So we called them at the border, and I said, look, John, don't freak out, but I don't know, we're at the border and things just got out of control. No, Jason, he's in jail. Look, the immigration guy was such an asshole. I mean, he had to hit him. And I didn't know that he had drugs in the car. It was the longest pause of silence I think I've ever heard. Jason and I are in the car, and we put it on speakerphone. We're sitting inside the pink Cadillac. And then, you know, when we told them we were just joking, it wasn't funny at all. They were downright pissed off. Which is always the sign of a pretty good joke, I guess. But, you know, constant stuff. Like I would switch the patches on the uniforms, make it really multicultural. You know, I had like the Canadian flag, and then they'd get into editing, and they'd be like, what? It was going on. And then, of course, a couple $1,000s later, a little CGI, they'd come to set and be like, you can tell I was a real pillar of professionalism. Richard Dean Anderson. Okay, let's see. I didn't really get to work with Rick that much. I actually see him more. I live in Malibu. I actually run into him more there than I ever did on the show. But when the first couple of days we were shooting, we were in helicopters up on these glaciers way up in BC, and you know, I just done a TV series with Rockford, and now I'm in a helicopter with MacGyver. It's cool. I like being an actor. And I was in the helicopter, and I handed him a rubber band and a paperclip. This thing goes down. And I'm just thinking, my shit's cold. And he just looks at me like this. He's like, you think you're the first guy to do that? So, it didn't go down too well, but it was a good experience. Apparently there's no exit doors on helicopters. Who's next?